On my 41st birthday, I learned that betrayal tastes like cold lasagna and sounds like my daughter wishing another man was her father. The anonymous message arrived at 11:47 p.m., just as I was washing dishes from the world's most awkward birthday dinner. Jenny had spent the entire meal checking her phone. Emily had rolled her eyes at everything I said. And the birthday cake came from the grocery store clearance rack. Happy birthday to me. My name's Tom Ward. I'm a mechanical engineer at Nichols & Associates here in Salisbury, Maryland. 41 years old, graying at the temples, and apparently invisible to my own family. I fix things for a living. Pumps, generators, industrial equipment. Ironic considering I couldn't fix my own marriage. The video file loaded slowly on my phone screen. At first, I didn't understand what I was looking at. A bedroom, not mine. Expensive furniture, the kind Jenny always pointed out in magazines with that wistful look in her eyes. Then I saw her. My wife of 16 years, undressed, tangled in sheets with a man I recognized immediately. Rick Marston, her high school boyfriend, the one she always described as ancient history. The guy who owned 3 car dealerships in town and drove a different sports car every week. I should have stopped watching. Should have thrown the phone across the room, screamed, done something normal. Instead, I stood there like an idiot, dish soap dripping from my hands, watching my marriage die in high definition. The worst part came at the end. A door opened. My 15-year-old daughter, Emily, walked into frame, still in her school clothes. She didn't seem surprised. She didn't gasp or run away. She walked over to the bed where my wife and her lover were hastily covering themselves, and she hugged him. "I wish you were my dad," Emily said, her voice soft but clear on the recording. "He actually listens to me." Rick kissed the top of her head. "Maybe someday, kiddo." Jenny smiled. My wife smiled at the idea of replacing me. The video ended. I set the phone down on the counter with the same care I'd use, handling unstable explosives. My hands weren't shaking. That surprised me. I felt cold, calculating, like someone had flipped a switch in my brain from loving husband and father to something else entirely. Upstairs, I could hear Jenny running a bath. Emily was in her room, probably texting friends about how lame her dad's birthday had been. Normal family sounds from a family that had apparently stopped including me months ago. I walked to my home office and opened my laptop, started making lists. Bank accounts, assets, property deeds, insurance policies. Everything we owned together. Everything I'd worked 16 years to build. The shame would come later, I knew. The anger, the grief, the whole messy human reaction to having your life blown apart. But right then, in that moment, I felt something much more dangerous. I felt smart. Jenny liked legal documents. She was a paralegal, after all, spent her days drowning in paperwork and procedure. Well, she was about to get a masterclass in what happens when someone who actually reads the fine print decides to use it. I pulled up our joint bank account, $43,000. Money I'd earned mostly from overtime and weekend consulting work while Jenny worked part-time and Emily played soccer and took piano lessons I paid for. The account was in both our names, but I'd been the one to set it up. I'd been the one to read the terms and conditions. And according to those terms, either account holder could transfer funds to a personal account for family emergencies. I'd say discovering your wife's affair qualified as an emergency. I opened a new account at a different bank online. The transfer would take until morning to complete, but by the time Jenny woke up, our joint account would be empty and our credit cards would be frozen. Next, I called my lawyer's after-hours line. Patricia Harper had handled our house purchase and our wills. She knew our financial situation better than anyone. "Tom, it's almost midnight. Is everything okay? I need to file for divorce, Patricia. First thing tomorrow morning. And I need to know how to protect my assets before Jenny realizes what's happening." A pause. What happened? "I have video evidence of her having an affair. I also have evidence that my daughter has been involved in covering it up. I want them both out of my life, and I want to make sure they can't take anything that belongs to me when they go." Patricia's voice shifted into professional mode. "How long has this been going on?" "I don't know. I just found out tonight. But based on what I saw, this isn't new." "Oh, okay, don't do anything rash. Don't confront anyone. Can you come in at 7 a.m.? I'll have papers ready. I'll be there." I hung up and went back to my lists. Property taxes, utility bills, car payments. Everything was in my name. Jenny's name was on the house deed in the joint account, but I'd been making the payments. In Maryland, that mattered. The bathwater stopped running upstairs. Jenny would be soaking in the tub, probably texting Rick about their next meeting. planning their future while I paid for the hot water and the mortgage and the phone bill that let her coordinate my betrayal. I pulled up our cell phone account and started reading the terms of service. Another thing I'd set up. Another thing I paid for. Another thing I could control. By 2 a.m., I had a plan. By morning, Jenny and Emily would wake up to a new reality. No access to money, no access to the house, and no access to the comfortable life they'd been taking for granted while shopping for my replacement. I closed the laptop and went upstairs. Jenny was asleep, her hair still damp from the bath. She looked peaceful, innocent even. 16 years of marriage, and I'd never suspected she was capable of this level of deception. Emily's door was closed, but I could see light underneath it. Still awake, probably on her phone, probably texting Rick or her friends or whoever else was part of the secret life my family had been living without me. I went to our bedroom and packed a suitcase. Just the essentials. I'd be staying at a hotel until the divorce was final, and I could legally remove them from my house. As I folded clothes, I thought about the video. Someone had sent it to me deliberately. Someone wanted me to know what was happening. The question was who and why now. It didn't matter. What mattered was that I finally knew the truth about my marriage, my daughter, and my place in their lives. They'd made their choice. Now I was making mine. I left the house at 5 a.m. while they were still sleeping. Left a note on the kitchen counter that said I was going out of town for work and would be back in a few days. Let them think they had time to plan their next move. They had no idea the game was already over. Patricia Harper's law office smelled like coffee and ambition. She'd been practicing family law for 20 years, and her walls were covered with certificates and photos of her with various politicians and judges. If you wanted to destroy someone's life legally and thoroughly, Patricia was your tool of choice. "Show me the video," she said, settling behind her desk with a legal pad. I handed her my phone. Watched her face change as she absorbed what she was seeing. When Emily appeared on screen and delivered her devastating line about wishing Rick was her father, Patricia's eyebrows shot up. "Jesus, Tom, how long do you think this has been going on?" Based on how comfortable Emily looked, months at least, maybe longer. Patricia made notes. The good news is Maryland is a no-fault divorce state, so the adultery won't impact the division of assets directly. But it will absolutely matter for custody and alimony, especially with your daughter's involvement. "I don't want custody." She looked up, surprised. "You don't want to fight for Emily?" "Emily made her choice. She chose Rick over me. I'm not going to force a relationship with a kid who wishes I wasn't her father." Patricia studied me for a moment. "You're sure about this? Because once we file these papers, there's no going back. You'll be giving up all parental rights." "I'm sure." She made more notes. "Okay, that actually simplifies things considerably. No custody battle means we can focus on protecting your assets. Tell me about your finances." I'd brought copies of everything. Bank statements, property deeds, investment accounts, retirement funds. 16 years of careful financial planning laid out in neat folders. "The house is jointly owned, but you've made all the mortgage payments?" "Every single one. I have the bank records to prove it." "Joint savings account?" "Was joint. I transferred the funds to a personal account this morning." Patricia smiled. "That was smart. Legally questionable, but smart. We'll need to address that in the filing, but since you have evidence of the affair, we can justify it as protecting marital assets from dissipation." She walked me through the process. Emergency motions to freeze remaining joint assets, temporary restraining orders to prevent Jenny from taking anything from the house, and a petition for divorce on grounds of irreconcilable differences with a request for an unequal division of assets based on Jenny's misconduct. How long will this take? If she doesn't fight it, 6 months. If she does fight it, we could be looking at a year or more. But given what's on that video, I don't think she'll want this to go to trial. I signed papers for 2 hours. By the time I left Patricia's office, Jenny's life was about to become very complicated. My phone had been buzzing all morning. 17 missed calls from Jenny, 12 from Emily, and 3 from a number I didn't recognize. I didn't answer any of them. Instead, I drove to the bank and met with my account manager. Transferred my direct deposit to the new account, removed Jenny's name from my safety deposit box, and updated my beneficiary information on all my accounts. "Is everything all right, Mr. Ward?" asked Janet, the manager who'd helped us open our first joint account 16 years ago. Getting divorced, I said. Need to make sure my soon-to-be ex-wife can't access anything that belongs to me. Janet nodded sympathetically. She'd probably seen this scenario 100 times. We'll take care of everything. Is there anything else we can do? Actually, yes. I need you to put an alert on my credit report. If anyone tries to open new accounts using my information, I want to know immediately. After the bank, I drove to my office. Nichols and Associates occupied a converted warehouse near the industrial district, all exposed brick and steel beams. My boss, Frank Nichols, was old-school blue-collar who'd built his engineering firm from nothing. "You look like heck, Ward," he said when I walked into his office. "Family problems. I might need some time off to deal with legal issues." Frank studied me over his coffee mug. "The kind of legal issues that require lawyers? Divorce. Ah, crap. I'm sorry, Tom. How bad? Bad enough that I'm going to need flexible hours for the next few months. Court dates, meetings with lawyers, that kind of thing." "You've got it. You're one of my best engineers, Tom. Whatever you need." I spent the rest of the morning working on a pump system design for a new client. Focusing on technical problems helped keep my mind off the fact that my phone was still buzzing every few minutes. At lunch, I finally listened to the voicemails. Jenny's messages started confused and escalated to panicked. The first few were about the empty bank account and the frozen credit cards. By message number 12, she'd figured out that I knew about Rick. "Tom, please call me back. I can explain everything. It's not what you think. Please, we need to talk." Emily's messages were angry. Accusations that I was being crazy and controlling. Demands that I come home and act like an adult. The unknown number turned out to be Rick. "Look, Ward, I don't know what game you're playing, but you need to knock it off. Jenny's hysterical, Emily's upset, and you're acting like a child. Call me back so we can work this out man to man." I deleted all the messages and blocked all 3 numbers. At 2 p.m., Patricia called. "They've been served." Jenny called my office screaming about the bank account. I told her she needs to get her own lawyer if she wants to contest anything. How did she take it? About as well as you'd expect. She's claiming the affair was a mistake, that it's over, that you're overreacting. Standard cheater playbook. And Emily? No direct contact with Emily, but Jenny mentioned that your daughter is devastated, that you're abandoning the family. Again, standard manipulation tactics. I felt a twist of something in my chest. Guilt, maybe. Emily was 15. She was old enough to understand consequences, but young enough to have been manipulated by Jenny and Rick. Then I remembered her words from the video. "I wish he were my dad." The guilt faded. "What's next?" I asked Patricia. "We wait. Jenny has 30 days to respond to the divorce petition. In the meantime, the restraining order keeps her from accessing any of your accounts or removing anything from the house. She can live there, but she can't sell anything or take anything." "What about Rick? What about him? Can we go after him for alienation of affection, interfering with my relationship with Emily?" Patricia paused. "Maryland doesn't recognize alienation of affection claims. But if you can prove he was encouraging Emily to reject you as her father, that could be relevant in other ways." Such as? Such as a civil suit for intentional infliction of emotional distress, or harassment. Depends on what else you can prove. I thought about that. Rick had been arrogant enough to let himself be recorded, talking about maybe being Emily's stepfather someday. He'd probably been arrogant in other ways too. "I need to do some research," I told Patricia. "I'll call you if I find anything useful." After work, I drove to Pete's Bar and Grill. Pete Kowalski had been my best friend since college, and his bar was the kind of place where you could drink beer and complain about life without anyone judging you. "You look terrible," Pete said, sliding a beer across the bar. "Jenny's been having an affair." "I filed for divorce this morning." Pete whistled low. "Man, brother, I'm sorry. Anyone I know? Rick Marston. That flashy a-hole with the car dealerships? Seriously?" I nodded and took a long drink of beer. "I never liked that guy," Pete said. "Always hitting on women at the bar, even the married ones. No respect." "It gets worse. Emily knew about it. She's been covering for them." Pete's face darkened. "Your kid knew her mom was cheating and didn't tell you? Worse than that. She told Rick she wished he was her father. Jesus Christ." Pete poured himself a shot of whiskey. "What are you going to do?" "I'm going to destroy them both. Legally, financially, socially. I'm going to make sure everyone in this town knows exactly what kind of people they are." Pete raised his shot glass. "To revenge. To justice," I corrected. We drank, and I started planning phase 2 of my war against the people who used to be my family. The beauty of living in a small town is that everyone knows everyone else's business. The curse of living in a small town is that everyone knows everyone else's business. I was about to turn that curse into a tool. Marcia Kellerman had been Jenny's best friend since high school. She was also the biggest gossip in Salisbury, with a Facebook page that served as the unofficial town newspaper. If you wanted information to spread quickly, you told Marcia. If you wanted to destroy someone's reputation, you gave Marcia the right ammunition. I found her at the grocery store on Thursday morning, loading her cart with wine and frozen dinners. Marcia was divorced, bitter, and always ready to hear about other people's relationship problems. Tom, I heard about you and Jenny. I'm so sorry. Thanks, Marcia. It's been rough. She leaned closer, lowering her voice. Jenny told me it was just a misunderstanding, that you overreacted to something minor. Is that what she called it? I pulled out my phone. Would you like to see the video someone sent me? The one of Jenny and Rick in bed together while Emily hugged him and said she wished he was her father? Marcia's eyes went wide. You have video. High definition, time-stamped, very clear audio. Oh my God. Jenny told me she was just helping Rick with some paperwork for his business. She said you got the wrong idea and went crazy. She's been lying to you too, Marcia. How long has she been helping Rick with paperwork? Marcia's face went through several expressions as she processed this. Jenny had been her closest friend, but Marcia hated being lied to more than she valued loyalty. She's been acting strange for months, Marcia admitted. Always checking her phone, making excuses to go out. I asked her about it, and she said you two were having problems. We were. I just didn't know I was the only one trying to fix them. I showed Marcia a screenshot from the video. Nothing explicit, just Jenny and Rick clearly together in bed. Marcia stared at it for a long moment. That bastard, she whispered. He hit on me at the Christmas party last year. I told Jenny about it, and she said I must have misunderstood. She was already protecting him. Marcia's expression hardened. What else do you know? I told her about Emily's involvement, about the bank accounts, about the divorce papers. By the time I finished, Marcia was furious. I can't believe she dragged Emily into this. That poor girl. Emily made her own choices, Marcia. She chose Rick over me. She's 15, Tom. She doesn't understand what she's doing. She understood enough to lie to me for months. She understood enough to tell Rick she wished he was her father. Marcia shook her head sadly. What are you going to do? I'm going to make sure everyone knows the truth. Jenny wants to paint me as the bad guy? Fine. Let's see how that works when people see what really happened. I left Marcia with copies of the screenshots and drove to Rick's main dealership. Marston Motors was a sprawling lot filled with shiny cars and red, white, and blue bunting. Rick's office was in a glass-walled building at the center of the lot, where he could survey his empire while making deals. I didn't go inside. Instead, I parked across the street and made phone calls. The first call was to the Better Business Bureau. I filed a complaint about Rick's business practices, specifically his habit of targeting married women for special deals that involved more than just car sales. The second call was to the local newspaper. I spoke to Sarah Chen, the reporter who covered business news. I have information about Rick Marston that might interest you, I told her, specifically about how he uses his business to facilitate affairs with married customers. That's a serious accusation, Mr. Ward. Do you have evidence? I have video evidence of him with my wife, and I have reason to believe she's not the only married woman he's been involved with. Sarah agreed to meet me for coffee the next day. The third call was to Rick's ex-wife, Linda. They'd divorced 3 years ago, and according to town gossip, it had been messy. Linda, this is Tom Ward, Jenny's husband. Oh, Tom, I heard about the divorce. I'm so sorry. Actually, I'm calling because I think you might be interested in what I found out about why Rick wanted to divorce you. A long pause. What do you mean? I mean, I have evidence that Rick's been having affairs for years, with multiple married women, and I think you might have grounds to reopen your divorce settlement. Linda agreed to meet me that afternoon. By the time I got home from work, Phase 2 was in motion. Marcia had already posted a cryptic message on Facebook about finding out who your real friends are and people who lie to cover up their own guilt. The post had 37 comments and counting. Sarah Chen had agreed to investigate Rick's business practices and personal conduct. Linda Marston had called her divorce lawyer and was preparing to file a motion to reopen her case based on new evidence of Rick's misconduct. And I had one more card to play. I drove to Emily's school and waited in the parking lot. When she came out with her friends, I rolled down my window. Emily, we need to talk. She looked around nervously, clearly not wanting her friends to see her talking to me. I don't have anything to say to you, she said. That's fine, you can just listen. I held up my phone. I have a video of you, your mother, and Rick. The whole town is going to see it soon. Your friends, your teachers, everyone. Emily's face went pale. You can't do that. I can, and I will. Unless you want to tell me the truth about how long this has been going on. Emily looked around again, then got in the car. How long? I asked. Since last summer, she whispered. Mom said you were mean to her, that you didn't appreciate her. Rick made her happy. And you thought it was okay to lie to me for 8 months? I thought you'd figure it out eventually. Mom said she was going to tell you when the time was right. The time was right 8 months ago, Emily. Before I spent Christmas buying presents for a family that was planning to replace me. Emily started crying. I didn't know what to do. Mom said if I told you, you'd leave and we'd lose the house. You're losing the house anyway. And you're losing me too. Because you chose Rick over your own father. I didn't mean it when I said that. I was just upset because you and Mom were fighting all the time. I wasn't fighting with your mother, Emily. I was trying to save a marriage that she'd already ended, while you helped her lie to me. I pulled over and stopped the car. Get out. Dad, please, get out. Find your own way home. Find your own way through life. You made your choice. Emily got out of the car, still crying. I drove away without looking back. That night, I sat in my hotel room and watched Marsha's Facebook post explode. The comments section had become a battlefield, with Jenny's supporters defending her and other people sharing their own stories about Rick's inappropriate behavior. Someone had posted a photo of Rick's car parked outside the Sunset Motel. Someone else had shared a story about Rick offering a special discount to their wife in exchange for private negotiations. By morning, Rick Marston's reputation was in ruins, and I was just getting started. Friday morning brought chaos. My phone started ringing at 6 a.m. with a call from Patricia Harper. Tom, we have a problem. Jenny's lawyers claiming you stole $43,000 from a joint account and that you're conducting a harassment campaign against her and Rick. Is what I did illegal? The bank transfer is legally gray. The social media campaign could be considered harassment if you're directly posting about them. I haven't posted anything directly. I just shared some information with concerned friends. Patricia laughed. You're playing a dangerous game, Tom. But so far you're playing it smart. Jenny's lawyer wants to meet today to discuss a settlement. What kind of settlement? They want the house, half of your retirement accounts, and alimony. In exchange, they'll agree to a quick divorce and won't pursue harassment charges. Counteroffer. Jenny gets nothing, I keep everything, and if she doesn't agree, the video goes public. Tom, I'm not negotiating with thieves and liars, Patricia. They made their choices. Now they live with the consequences. After I hung up, I drove to Pete's bar for coffee and to check on the local gossip situation. Pete was wiping down tables and shaking his head. Your wife's been calling here looking for you, he said. Sounded pretty desperate. What did you tell her? That I hadn't seen you, which was true at the time. Pete poured me coffee. But, Tom, this is getting pretty intense. Half the town is talking about Jenny and Rick. The other half is talking about you. What are they saying about me? Mixed reactions. Some people think you're handling this perfectly. Others think you're being too harsh. And what do you think? Pete considered this while cleaning glasses. I think your wife and daughter screwed you over, and Rick Marston is a predator who finally got caught. I also think you're angrier than I've ever seen you, and that makes me nervous. I'm not angry, Pete. I'm focused. That's what makes me nervous. Around noon, I got a call from Sarah Chen at the newspaper. Tom, I've been investigating Rick Marston like we discussed. I've found 3 other women who claim he used his business to initiate inappropriate relationships. One of them was married at the time. Are they willing to go on the record? 2 of them are. The third is still married and doesn't want her husband to find out. What about his business practices? That's where it gets interesting. Rick's been selling cars to women at below-market prices, then forgetting to file the proper paperwork with the DMV. The women think they're getting a great deal, but legally, they don't own the cars. When the relationships end, Rick repossesses the vehicles. That's fraud. That's what the state attorney general is going to investigate. I'm running the story on Sunday. Things were moving faster than I'd expected. By the time Sarah's story hit the newspaper, Rick would be facing criminal charges as well as civil lawsuits. I spent the afternoon at work, trying to focus on engineering problems, while my phone buzzed with updates from the war I'd started. Marcia had posted more details about Jenny's lies. Linda Marston's lawyer had filed motions to reopen her divorce. 2 of Rick's employees had quit after learning about the fraud allegations. At 4 p.m., my boss Frank knocked on my office door. "Tom, you have visitors." Jenny and Emily were standing in the lobby, both looking like they hadn't slept. Jenny's eyes were red from crying. Emily looked scared. "We need to talk," Jenny said. "No, we don't. Tom, please. This has gone too far. People are saying terrible things about Emily. Her friends won't talk to her. Her teachers are looking at her differently. That's what happens when you help your mother have an affair, Emily. Actions have consequences." Emily started crying again. "I'm sorry, Dad. I didn't know it would turn out like this." "You didn't know that lying to your father for 8 months would have consequences?" Jenny stepped forward. "Don't take this out on her, Tom. She's just a kid. I'm the one who made the mistakes." "You're right. You made the mistakes. But Emily chose to help you make them. She chose to lie to me. She chose to tell Rick she wished he was her father. She didn't mean that. She meant it when she said it. The fact that she regrets it now doesn't change anything." I looked at Emily. "You want to know what happens next? Rick is going to be arrested for fraud. Your mother is going to lose the house because she can't afford the mortgage without my income. And you're going to learn what it's like to live with the consequences of your choices." "Tom, we can work this out," Jenny said. "I'll end things with Rick. We can go to counseling. We can fix this." "There's nothing to fix, Jenny. Our marriage ended the moment you decided to sleep with Rick. It was buried the moment Emily decided she wanted him as her father instead of me." Frank appeared beside me. "Is there a problem here?" "They were just leaving," I said. Jenny grabbed my arm. "Tom, please, I love you. I made a mistake, but I love you." I looked at her hand on my arm, then at her face. "If you loved me, you wouldn't have spent 8 months sleeping with another man. If you loved me, you wouldn't have turned our daughter against me. If you loved me, you would have ended this before it started." I pulled my arm away. "You love the life I gave you. The house, the security, the comfortable middle-class existence I worked 60-hour weeks to provide. You don't love me. You never loved me." Jenny's face crumpled. "That's not true. Prove it. Tell me one thing you love about me that isn't related to what I can provide for you." She opened her mouth, then closed it. Couldn't answer. "That's what I thought." I turned to Emily. "And you want Rick to be your father? Congratulations. He's about to be unemployed and facing criminal charges. Good luck with that." I walked away, leaving them standing in the lobby of my office building. Frank followed me back to my office. "Jesus, Tom, that was brutal. They destroyed my family, Frank. They don't get to complain about how I react to it. What happens now? Now they learn what life is like without me." That evening, I got a call from Patricia with an update on the legal situation. Jenny's lawyer called again. "They're willing to accept a no alimony divorce if you'll agree to give Jenny the house." "No. Tom, the house is jointly owned. She has a legal right to half of it. Then we'll sell it and split the proceeds. She doesn't get to keep the house I paid for, so she can live in it with Rick." Speaking of Rick, his lawyer called me too. "Apparently he wants to meet with you to work out a gentleman's agreement." "What kind of agreement?" "He'll end his relationship with Jenny and leave town if you'll stop the media campaign against him." I thought about that. Rick was scared. Good. "Set up the meeting," I said. "I want to look him in the eye when I tell him no." "Tom, set up the meeting, Patricia. It's time Rick and I had a conversation." Saturday morning, I woke up in my hotel room and realized I felt better than I had in months. For the first time in years, I knew exactly where I stood with everyone in my life. No more wondering if Jenny really loved me. No more trying to connect with a daughter who resented my existence. No more pretending I had a happy family. The truth was ugly, but it was honest. And I could work with honest. I ordered room service, read Sarah Chen's preliminary article about Rick online, and started planning for my meeting with the man who'd stolen my family. It was time to finish this. The meeting was set for Monday afternoon at Patricia's office. Rick arrived with his lawyer, a nervous-looking man named Davidson, who kept adjusting his tie. Rick himself looked like he'd aged 5 years in the past week. His usual polished appearance was gone, replaced by wrinkled clothes and bloodshot eyes. "Tom," Rick said, extending his hand, "thanks for agreeing to meet." I didn't shake his hand. "Let's get this over with." We sat around Patricia's conference table. Davidson opened a briefcase and pulled out a stack of papers. My client is prepared to offer a substantial settlement in exchange for your agreement to cease all harassment and defamation activities, Davidson began. How substantial? Patricia asked. $50,000 plus Mr. Marston's agreement to relocate his business outside of Maryland. I laughed. $50,000? Rick, you destroyed my 16-year marriage and turned my daughter against me. You think $50,000 covers that? Rick leaned forward. Look, Tom, I'm sorry about how this happened. But you have to understand, Jenny came to me. She was unhappy. She said you two were having problems. So you decided to solve those problems by sleeping with my wife? It wasn't like that. What was it like, Rick? Explain to me how seducing a married woman and encouraging her daughter to lie to her father was some kind of noble gesture. Rick's composure cracked. You don't know what you're talking about. Jenny loves me. She's been miserable with you for years. If she was so miserable, why didn't she divorce me? Why did she sneak around behind my back for 8 months? Because she was afraid of you. The room went silent. Patricia raised an eyebrow. Davidson looked like he wanted to disappear. She was afraid of me? I asked quietly. She said you had a temper, that you controlled all the money, that you'd destroy her if she tried to leave. I turned to Patricia. Are you getting this? She was taking notes. Every word. I looked back at Rick. So your defense is that you were rescuing my wife from an unhealthy marriage? I'm not saying you were unhealthy, but you just said Jenny was afraid of me, that I controlled her, that I'd destroy her if she left. I stood up. Rick, you just confessed to alienation of affection and provided me with grounds for a defamation lawsuit. Davidson grabbed Rick's arm. Don't say another word. But Rick was beyond listening to his lawyer. You want to know the truth, Tom? Jenny doesn't love you. She never loved you. She married you because you were safe and stable, but she's been bored out of her mind for years. Go on. Emily can't stand you either. She told me you're cold and distant, that you care more about your work than your family, that she's embarrassed to bring friends home because you're so boring. Patricia was writing furiously. Davidson looked like he was having a heart attack. Is that everything? I asked. You're a small, petty man who's trying to destroy people because your wife found someone better. I sat back down. Patricia, did you get all of that? Yes. Good. Now, let me tell you something, Rick. Jenny didn't leave me because I was cruel or controlling. She didn't leave me because she was afraid. She didn't leave me at all. She stayed married to me while sleeping with you because she wanted to keep the comfortable life I provided while getting excitement from you. Rick's face was turning red. That's not... She wanted the security of my income and the thrill of your sports cars. She wanted the respectability of being married to an engineer and the adventure of sneaking around with a car salesman. She didn't want to choose between us, Rick. She wanted both. I leaned across the table. But you know what? She's about to get neither. Because I'm divorcing her, and you're about to be arrested for fraud. What are you talking about? Patricia slid a newspaper across the table. Sarah Chen's article was on the front page, complete with photos of Rick and details about his fraudulent business practices. Rick read the headline and went pale. This is all lies. Actually, it's all documented. The state attorney general is opening an investigation. 3 women are filing civil suits. Your business is finished, Rick. Davidson was reading over Rick's shoulder. We need to leave, now. Not yet, I said. Rick and I aren't finished talking. I pulled out my phone and showed Rick the video. You see this? This is you in bed with my wife while my daughter tells you she wishes you were her father. You know what I'm going to do with this? Rick couldn't take his eyes off the screen. You can't. I can and I will. I'm going to send it to every person in your contact list. Your customers, your employees, your neighbors. I'm going to post it on every social media platform. I'm going to make sure everyone in Maryland knows exactly what kind of man you are. That's illegal. No, Rick, it's not. You're not a minor. Jenny's not a minor. You had no expectation of privacy in someone else's bedroom. And I have every right to share evidence of my wife's adultery. Davidson was pulling on Rick's arm. We're leaving right now. One more thing, I said as they reached the door. Emily, my daughter, the 15-year-old girl you convinced to lie to her father and betray her family. Stay away from her. Because if I find out you've had any contact with her after today, I won't use lawyers and newspapers to destroy you. I'll use my hands. Rick turned back to face me. Are you threatening me? I'm promising you. Touch my daughter, talk to my daughter, even look at my daughter, and I'll put you in the hospital. You can't try me. Davidson finally succeeded in dragging Rick out of the office. Patricia closed her notebook and looked at me. Well, that was educational. Did we get what we needed? We got more than we needed. Rick just confessed to alienation of affection, defamed your character, and admitted to encouraging Emily to lie to you. If this goes to court, he'll be paying you damages instead of the other way around. What about the threat I made at the end? What threat? I didn't hear any threat. I heard a father warning a predator to stay away from his minor daughter. I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. So it's over? The legal part is just beginning. But the personal part? Yeah, Tom. It's over. You won. That evening, I sat in my hotel room and thought about what winning meant. Jenny would lose the house, her reputation, and her comfortable life. Emily would learn what it meant to live with the consequences of her choices. Rick would face criminal charges and financial ruin, and I would be alone. For the first time since this started, I felt something that might have been regret. Not for what I'd done, but for what I'd lost. 16 years of marriage, 15 years of being a father. A life that had felt real, even if it was built on lies. Then I remembered Emily's words from the video. I wish he were my dad. The regret faded. They'd made their choices. I'd made mine. Now we all had to live with them. 3 weeks later, the dominoes finished falling. Rick was arrested on fraud charges. The state attorney general's investigation had uncovered a pattern of illegal business practices going back 5 years. He'd cheated dozens of customers, mostly women, out of hundreds of thousands of dollars. His dealerships were shut down, his assets frozen, and his bail set at $200,000. Jenny lost her job at the law firm. Her boss couldn't afford to keep an employee whose personal life had become a public scandal. She was living in our house, but the mortgage company had started foreclosure proceedings since she couldn't make the payments. Emily was finishing her sophomore year at a new school. The gossip at her old school had become unbearable, and Jenny had been forced to move in with her sister in the next county. I got these updates from Patricia, who got them from Jenny's lawyer during settlement negotiations. The divorce was proceeding smoothly now that Jenny had no leverage and no money to fight. She's agreed to everything, Patricia told me over lunch. No alimony, no claim on your retirement accounts, no custody demands. She just wants the house. She can't afford the house. She knows that, but she's hoping you'll agree to let her stay there until Emily graduates. That's 3 years. She's desperate, Tom. She has nowhere else to go. I thought about that while finishing my sandwich. Jenny, who had spent our entire marriage taking my financial support for granted, was finally learning what life looked like without it. What's she offering in exchange? A public apology. She'll admit the affair, take full responsibility for the divorce, and clear your name in the community. And Emily? Emily will write you a letter apologizing for her role in the deception. I laughed. A letter? She helped destroy our family for 8 months, and she thinks a letter fixes it? She's 16, Tom. She made a mistake. She made a choice. Multiple choices. Every day for 8 months, she chose to lie to me. Patricia studied me across the table. You're really going to cut Emily out of your life permanently? Emily cut me out of her life when she decided Rick would make a better father. I'm just making it official. What if she wants a relationship with you when she's older? When she understands what really happened? Then she can explain why I should forgive someone who spent 8 months wishing I wasn't her father. Patricia made notes. Okay, I'll tell Jenny's lawyer the answer is no. The house gets sold, proceeds split according to the settlement agreement. Emily can write her letter, but it doesn't change anything legally. And the public apology? Not necessary. The whole town knows what happened. Jenny apologizing now just makes her look more pathetic. That afternoon, I drove past our old house. Jenny's car was in the driveway, along with a moving truck. She was finally accepting reality. I didn't stop. There was nothing there for me anymore. Instead, I drove to the cemetery where my parents were buried. I hadn't visited their graves in over a year. Too busy with work and family obligations to make time for the dead. I sat on the bench near their headstone and tried to imagine what they would think of the past month. My father had been a practical man who believed in hard work and loyalty. My mother had been gentle but strong, the kind of woman who held families together through sheer force of will. They would have been horrified by Jenny's betrayal, but they might have been equally horrified by my response. I didn't have a choice, I said out loud, feeling foolish for talking to granite markers. They destroyed everything we built. I had to protect myself. The wind rustled through the trees, but the dead offered no opinions. My phone buzzed with a text message from an unknown number. Dad, it's Emily. Mom gave me a new phone. Can we talk? Please? I stared at the message for a long time. Emily was 16 now, old enough to understand consequences, but still young enough to learn from them. Part of me wanted to respond, to try to rebuild some kind of relationship with the daughter I'd raised for 15 years. Then I remembered her hugging Rick in that video, remembered her saying she wished he was her father. I deleted the message and blocked the number. Some bridges, once burned, couldn't be rebuilt. That evening, I had dinner at Pete's bar. The usual crowd was there, local workers and retirees who'd been coming to Pete's for years. A few of them nodded at me, but most avoided eye contact. I'd become a local celebrity of sorts, the man who'd destroyed his own family rather than forgive their betrayal. How you holding up? Pete asked, setting a beer in front of me. I'm fine. You don't look fine. You look like a man who's won a war, but lost everything he was fighting for. I didn't lose anything worth keeping. Pete wiped down the bar, considering his words. Tom, I've known you for 20 years. You're not a cruel man. But what you did to Jenny and Emily, that was cruel. What they did to me was cruel. I just responded appropriately. Did you? Because from where I sit, it looks like you had a choice between forgiveness and revenge, and you chose revenge. Forgiveness is for people who are sorry for what they did. Jenny's only sorry she got caught. Emily's only sorry she has to face consequences. Maybe, or maybe they're sorry they hurt someone they loved. I finished my beer and left money on the bar. They didn't love me, Pete. If they had, none of this would have happened. I walked back to my hotel room and sat on the bed, looking around at the temporary space that had become my home. Clean, functional, empty of memories or emotional attachments. Tomorrow, I would start looking for a permanent apartment, something small and efficient, designed for a single man with no family obligations. I would focus on work, maybe take on some consulting projects, build a new life from the ashes of the old one. It would be a good life. Quiet, predictable, free from the chaos of other people's emotions and betrayals. But as I sat there in the silence, I couldn't shake Pete's words. I'd had a choice between forgiveness and revenge. I'd chosen revenge. And revenge, it turned out, was a cold comfort on a lonely night. 6 months after the divorce was finalized, I received an envelope in the mail with no return address. Inside was a single sheet of paper with a message written in shaky handwriting. Mr. Ward, I thought you should know the truth about who sent you that video. It wasn't a stranger. It was me, Linda Marston, Rick's ex-wife. I hired a private investigator to follow him because I suspected he was hiding assets during our divorce. The investigator got the video of Rick with your wife and your daughter. I sent it to you because I thought you deserved to know what kind of man was trying to replace you and your family. I'm sorry for the pain it caused, but I'm not sorry I sent it. You had the right to know the truth, Linda. I read the letter 3 times, then put it in my desk drawer next to Emily's unopened apology letter and the final divorce papers. Linda Marston had destroyed my family to get revenge on her ex-husband. I had destroyed what was left of it to get revenge on my wife and daughter. Rick had destroyed multiple families to satisfy his own selfish desires. Everyone had gotten their revenge. Everyone had paid a price. I was living alone in a 2-bedroom apartment across town. Jenny and Emily had moved to Virginia to live with Jenny's sister. Rick was in prison serving 2 years for fraud. His dealerships were gone, his assets liquidated to pay restitution to his victims. The house we'd lived in for 12 years had been sold. After paying off the mortgage and dividing the proceeds, Jenny had gotten enough money to start over somewhere else. Not much, but enough. I'd kept everything else, the retirement accounts, the investment portfolio, the savings I'd built over 16 years of careful financial planning. I was financially secure, professionally successful, and completely alone. Some nights I wondered if Pete had been right. If I'd chosen revenge when I could have chosen forgiveness. If there had been a way to rebuild trust and save my family. But then I would remember Emily's words from that video. I wish he were my dad. Some betrayals cut too deep for forgiveness. Some choices couldn't be undone. Jenny had chosen Rick over our marriage. Emily had chosen to help her. I had chosen to protect myself rather than try to save people who didn't want to be saved. We all lived with those choices now. The truth was, I didn't miss the chaos and deception that had defined my family life for those final 8 months. I didn't miss wondering if my wife really loved me or if my daughter respected me. I didn't miss being taken for granted and lied to by the people who were supposed to care about me most. What I missed was the illusion that I'd had a family at all. But illusions, once shattered, couldn't be repaired. And I'd learned that living with painful truth was better than living with comfortable lies. I was 42 years old, divorced, estranged from my only child, and starting over from scratch. It wasn't the life I'd planned, but it was an honest life. And after 16 years of lies, honesty was enough.